Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to take a close look at Apple, specifically their Q2 results for the 2025 fiscal year.
Yeah. We've got the earnings call transcript, a bit of Q1 context, and the official financials.
Exactly. And the plan is to really unpack what's happening with Apple, where they might be headed.
And figure out what it actually means without drowning everyone in spreadsheets.
Right. So where do we jump in first? The top line.
Let's do it. Big picture numbers first. Q2 revenue hit $95.4 billion.
95.4. Okay. How does that stack up?
It's solid. That's up 5% compared to the same time last year.
Yeah.
And interestingly, they actually beat the analyst estimates.
Oh, they did? By how much?
By just over $600 million. So, yeah, better than expected.
Okay, so decent growth and they beat the street. What about profit, the EPS?
Also looking pretty healthy. Diluted EPS, that's earnings per share, came in at $1.65.
And that's up.
Up 8% year over year. And actually, that's a record for their March quarter.
A record EPS for the March quarter. Okay,
Yeah.
So strong top line, strong bottom line.
Pretty much, yeah. A good start to the story.
And Tim Cook, the CEO, he usually gives some opening thoughts. What stood out from his remarks?
Well, one thing he really flagged was services. Record performance there.
Services is always huge for them. Things like the App Store, Apple TV Plus Tech.
Exactly. Apple Pay, iCloud, all that stuff. Pulled in $26.6 billion.
Wow, and the growth.
Up 12% compared to last year. Really significant growth in that area.
Yeah, that 12% is chunky. It
Wow.
just shows how much that ecosystem matters now, beyond just selling the hardware.
Definitely. It's a huge part of their business model. He also mentioned they hit quarterly records in quite a few places globally.
Oh, yeah. Whereabouts?
Let's see. The UK, Spain, Finland, over in Europe, then Brazil, Chile, Turkey, Poland, also India and the Philippines.
So pretty widespread strength then, not just relying on one or two markets.
Exactly. Shows that global reach is still working for them.
And Cook also talked about future plans.
Right.
Some big investment figures.
Yes, this was a major point. A plan to spend $500 billion in the U.S.
$500 billion. Over what time frame?
over the next 4 years. It's about expanding teams, building facilities.
Where are they focusing this investment?
Across quite a few states, actually. Michigan, Texas, California, Arizona, Nevada, Iowa, Oregon, North Carolina, Washington. List goes on.
Okay.
And they're specifically opening a new advanced server manufacturing factory in Texas.
A server factory. Interesting. That's a huge commitment to U.S. operations. Any thoughts on the strategy behind that?
Well, it definitely signals confidence in the U.S., right? Long term. Could be about talent, maybe supply chain resilience, too.
Yeah, diversifying maybe? And potentially some incentives involved?
Could be. It's a multifaceted thing, I'd imagine. He also touched on chips.
Component sourcing. What did he say there?
They expect to source over 19 billion chips from about a dozen U.S. states just in this calendar year, 2025.
19 billion chips.
Yeah, and that includes some of the really advanced stuff coming out of Arizona.
Okay, so that ties back into the U.S. investment story. More domestic sourcing.
Seems like it, yeah. A definite theme.
All right, let's pivot to the products then. How did the different categories do? Starting with the big one, the iPhone.
iPhone revenue was $46.8 billion.
Okay, and year over year, that's
That's up 2%. So modest growth, but still growth.
still positive.
Huh?
Any new hardware mentioned?
Yep, they talked about the new entry-level iPhone 16. Big push on battery life there.
Right.
And it features their new Apple-designed C1 modem, their first in-house one, I believe.
The modem. That's a big step for them. And the Pro models.
Still popular, powered by the A18 Pro chip,
Right.
so the usual tiered strategy.
Okay, so iPhone holding steady, slight growth. What about Macs?
Max had a better quarter, actually. Revenue hit $7.9 billion,
That's up.
up 7% year over year, so stronger growth than the iPhone.
What drove that? New models?
Yeah, they launched the new MacBook Air with the M4 chip,
M4 Air, okay.
upgraded camera, 12-megapixel center stage, and a new sky blue color option.
Nice. Any of the Mac news?
Yeah, the new Mac Studio, positioned as a real AI workhorse.
With the M4 Max and M3 Ultra.
M4 Max or the M3 Ultra, exactly. And they're highlighting the AI stuff, like writing tools, notification summaries via Apple Intelligence.
That's right. The AI integration seems to be a big theme across the board now. How about the iPad? That segment's been a bit variable.
iPad had a really strong quarter. Revenue jumped 15% year over year.
15%? Wow. To what level?
$6.4 billion.
What was behind that surge?
They brought out the new iPad Air with the M3 chip.
M3 in the air, okay.
And again, lots of talk about Apple Intelligence features, plus new Apple Pencil Pro tricks like the cleanup tool in Photos and Image Wand in Notes.
And are they still attracting new buyers to iPad?
Apparently, yes. Over half the people who bought an iPad this quarter were new to the product.
That's a great sign for iPad's longevity. Keeps bringing new folks in. Okay, last hardware category. Wearables, home and accessories. Apple Watch, AirPods.
That one was actually down slightly, $7.5 billion in revenue.
Down how much?
Down 5% year over year.
Any particular reason for the dip?
Well, they highlighted the upcoming Apple Watch Series 10, and the new AirPods 4, those are getting active noise cancellation and an open-ear design option.
Interesting combo, open ear ANC.
Yeah. And more hearing health stuff for AirPods Pro 2. Also, updates on Vision Pro.
Right. What's happening with Vision Pro?
Some new content, like a Metallica immersive video.
Yeah.
And Vision OS 2.4 is coming, which adds Apple Intelligence features and a spatial gallery app.
Okay.
They're also expanding retail UAE, an online store in Saudi Arabia, more push in India, but it's worth remembering.
Yeah.
The comparison quarter last year included the launch buzz of Vision Pro, so that likely explains some of the year-over-year dip for this category.
Ah, right. That makes sense. Good context.
Yeah.
Okay, let's circle back to services. That $26.6 billion record revenue, 12% growth. What's the engine there?
It's really broad-based, the huge number of Apple devices out there,
Sure.
basically.
The installed base.
Exactly. People using the App Store, Apple TV, plus IV, Apple Pay, Fitness, plus you name it. Apple TV Plus is doing well with shows like The Studio, Severance returning.
Award season must be good for them, too.
Oh, yeah. Over 2,500 nominations, 560 wins, apparently. And they're expanding sports, Friday Night Baseball, MLS Season Pass, now F1 info in the Apple Sports app.
And they hit a big subscription milestone, didn't they?
Yes. Over 1 billion paid subscriptions across all their services now.
1 billion. That's just staggering. Shows the power of that ecosystem lock-in.
Right.
Or maybe just convenience.
Bit of both, probably. Double-digit growth in paid accounts, too.
And software updates are key here, especially with AI, right?
Totally. iOS 18.4 is bringing Apple Intelligence to more languages and regions.
And their whole AI strategy seems very Apple.
Yeah, leveraging their own silicon, the neural engine, big emphasis on privacy with this private cloud compute idea for the generative AI stuff.
What specific AI features have actually rolled out?
Quite a few. Writing tools for refining text, Genmoji for custom emojis, Image Playground for making images,
Image Wand, too.
Image Wand, cleanup for photos, visual intelligence to understand images, the ChatGPT connection, plus AI photo search, smart replies, priority notifications, summaries, lots of practical stuff.
But Siri's big overhaul isn't quite ready.
They mentioned the more personalized Siri features need more time. Quality standards, basically, but they're working on it.
Okay. The privacy angle on AI is definitely their differentiator. What about sustainability? Any updates there?
Yeah, they highlighted progress, said they've cut emissions by 60% since 2015.
50%, that's substantial.
It is. And more use of clean energy recycled materials. Working with suppliers, too, to bring 17.8 gigawatts of renewable electricity online.
All part of that 2030 carbon neutral goal.
Exactly. Seems like they're making real strides there.
Okay, now for a potentially trickier topic. Tariffs. Global trade stuff. How's that affecting them?
Well, they said the impact was pretty limited in the March quarter.
How come?
They put it down to supply chain work, managing inventory, basically optimizing things.
But looking ahead.
They are projecting a hit in the June quarter, around $900 million in extra costs, assuming current tariff rates stick.
$900 million. Ouch.
Yeah. And beyond June, there's still uncertainty. That Section 232 investigation into semiconductors, for example.
So it's an ongoing challenge. Are they shifting production around because of this?
It seems so. They expect most iPhones sold in the U.S. next quarter will actually come from India?
Really?
India. Yeah. And most iPads, Macs, watches, AirPods from Vietnam.
Interesting. And China.
Still the main source for products sold outside the U.S. And they noted most products aren't currently hit by those reciprocal tariffs announced back in April.
So a complex juggling act on the supply chain front to manage costs.
Definitely. Constant optimization.
Okay, let's get into some more of the financial nitty-gritty from the CFO, Kevin Parekh. What were his key points?
Well, he reinforced the installed base point all-time high across all products, all regions.
Okay.
Gross margin overall was strong, 47.1%. That was up sequentially.
Driven by
Favorable mix, mostly. Though product margin itself was down a bit sequentially, services margin was way up at 75.7%.
75% margin on services.
Wow. Yeah, that really helps the overall picture. Operating expenses were up 6% year over year, $15.3 billion.
And the bottom line again, net income.
$24.8 billion net income. And they generated $24 billion in operating cash flow. Very strong cash generation.
He also talked about the specific product installed bases.
Yep, reiterated all-time highs for iPhone, Mac, iPad, Apple Watch. Mentioned strong growth in upgraders for iPhone and Mac. Lots of new customers for iPad and Watch too. Over half the buyers in the quarter were new to those products.
That reinforces the earlier point about iPad attracting new users. What about enterprise?
Seeing growth there too. Mentioned KPMG rolling out iPhone 16, Nubank choosing MacBook Air, Dassault using Vision Pro.
Okay, and the cash pile. Still enormous.
$133 billion in cash and marketable securities. Net cash of $35 billion after accounting for debt.
And what are they doing with all that cash? Shareholder returns.
Big time. Returned $29 billion just in Q2 through dividends and buybacks.
$29 billion in one quarter.
Yeah. And they authorized another $100 billion for future share repurchases. Plus, they bumped the dividend up 4% to $1.26 per share.
Okay, so keeping shareholders happy is clearly a priority. All right, looking forward then. What's the official outlook for Q3, the June quarter?
They're guiding for total revenue growth in the low to mid-single digits year over year.
Low to mid-single digits. Okay, and that assumes.
Assumes current tariff rates hold and the macroeconomy doesn't get worse.
And gross margin with that tariff hit.
Expected between 45.5% and 46.5%. That range includes the estimated $900 million tariff impact.
Okay, so margin compression expected due to tariffs, OpEx.
Operating expenses projected between $15.3 billion and $15.5 billion, so roughly stable to slightly up.
All right, so still expecting growth, but definitely a more cautious tone for Q3, largely because of those tariff impacts.
Seems fair to say, yeah.
During the Q&A part of the call, what else came up? I assume tariffs and supply chain were big topics.
Absolutely. Lots of discussion there. Apple just reiterated they're engaged in discussions, constantly optimizing. They did mention building some inventory ahead, maybe as a buffer.
Hedging their bets a bit. What about China specifically? Performance there.
Revenue was down 2% year over year, but they said, excluding currency headwinds, it was roughly flat.
Which is better than it has been, right?
Yeah, definitely an improvement sequentially from the December quarter. Channel inventory stable. They think subsidies helped.
And iPhone was key to that improvement.
Yes, iPhone was the main driver sequentially, but interestingly, Mac, iPad, and Watch are still bringing in mostly new customers in China.
So even with challenges, they're still attracting newcomers to the ecosystem there.
Seems so. iPhone and iPad were apparently the top two selling smartphones and tablets in urban China.
Okay. Anything else significant from the Q&A? Apple Intelligence impact, maybe?
Yes, they shared an interesting tidbit, said that in the markets where Apple Intelligence rolled out in Q2, the iPhone 16 family actually performed better year over year compared to markets where it hadn't launched yet.
Oh, that's fascinating. A tangible sign that the AI features might be driving sales.
Potentially, yeah. Early days, but suggestive. The wider rollout happened in Q3.
And series personalization. Still needs time.
Still needs more time to hit their quality bar, but they say progress is being made.
Okay. Any talk about long-term R&D or infrastructure?
Yep, reaffirmed commitment to significant R&D investment. Talked about their hybrid data center strategy, using both their own and third-party facilities, and continuing to invest in expanding capacity.
And that in-house modem, the C1.
They sounded really excited about it being in the iPhone 16, focused on battery life and other benefits, called it the beginning of a journey.
Right, taking more control of core tech. Finally, any mention of the legal battles? Epic, DOJ.
Briefly. Said they strongly disagree with the Epic case injunction, plan to appeal, monitoring the DOJ case involving Google closely, but outcome unclear.
Okay, standard legal caution there. So let's try and wrap this all up. What are the big takeaways from this whole Q2 deep dive?
Well, overall, it was definitely a strong quarter for Apple. They beat on revenue, beat on EPS.
Services powerhouse continues.
Absolutely. Record services revenue, really strong growth there. And Mac and iPad also had, pretty good performance, especially iPad's jump.
And they're clearly investing heavily for the future.
Yeah, that huge U.S. investment plan. And the big push on Apple Intelligence across the product line, AI is central now.
But navigating challenges, too.
For sure. The tariff situation is clearly a factor impacting the outlook. And they're actively managing that complex global supply chain, shifting production.
So cautious optimism for Q3, maybe?
I think that captures it. The underlying business looks solid, but there are definite macro and geopolitical headwinds they're dealing with.
And it really does feel like Apple Intelligence could be a significant differentiator moving forward, especially if those early signs of it boosting iPhone sales hold up.
Yeah, and developing more core tech in-house like that C1 modem points to deeper integration and potentially more unique features down the road.
That $500 billion U.S. investment is also just a massive statement about their long-term view on domestic growth and innovation.
Hmm.
Be interesting to see how that plays out.
Absolutely. And for you listening, it's worth keeping an eye on how these tariff talks evolve and how Apple continues to adjust its supply chain could eventually impact pricing or availability.
Definitely. And with WWDC, their developer conference, usually happening around this time, we're likely to hear even more about Apple Intelligence and the future of their software. It
Wow.
feels like a pivotal moment.
It does. Lots happening.
So thinking about all this AI integration, what features genuinely excite you? How do you see this tech potentially changing how you use your Apple devices, or any device, really? Something to ponder.
Indeed. This earnings call gives us a snapshot, but the tech landscape keeps moving fast.
Always does. Well, thanks for diving deep into Apple's Q2 with us.